I'm going to show you how I take a little loop or beat idea like this and turn it into a full finished song like this.
One way through the dark side. Oh Lord, never make it easy. I pray for the strength to live it all, live it all. All it calling me. Never look back through the deepest red. Straight falling and burning blue fire going up in my head. Yeah, dark is the angel. Show me the way. Darkness will fall, break through the wall, let go and feel the rain. Fighting pure hell. Heaven can wait. 'Cause I gave it all as I give you call the monster inside of me. I give it all till I don't have anything left. Fly down and down to the end. Yeah.
I'm going to dive into full detail of my process and try and help as much as possible for any of you who have got stuck in that loop making loop. What I can't give you is a step-by-step process or rules that work every time, because you need to develop your own process. What I can give you is the meta perspectives that I find really helpful and a toolkit of techniques that I always use to help me keep it moving towards that final product. I'm going to leave a help sheet with all the points that I make in the description so that if you find the points I give you valuable, you can check that out and reference it whilst you're working on your projects. So, welcome to the video. My name is Kobe McCool. Thanks for checking it out. If you find it valuable, you know what to do. I've also just recently set up a Discord server, and if any of you guys want to share any of your loops or ideas that you might be stuck with, or just hang out with the other people that are watching this video and myself, get some production advice or just general music chat, then check that out. It's down in the description. I'd love to see you there, and it'd be great to connect with you all a little bit more. If you're unfamiliar with the term meta perspectives, it's just the big picture thinking. To avoid getting lost in loopville, firstly, you are what you repeatedly do. A phrase that I've found very helpful. You want to be a finisher, not just a starter. So you want to form the habit of actually completing song ideas. Now you can do this way before the actual song ideas that you complete are high quality. You can develop this habit no matter what stage of music production you are at, whether you're very early beginner, whether you are much more advanced. Think of it like lifting weights. If each time you do a repetition, you only do half of the repetition with bad form, then that's what you're going to develop. It doesn't matter what strength you have initially, that's what you're trying to build, but you want to build wholesome strength and fully competent strength. So even if the weight is not really heavy, you still want to go through the full range of motion from the bottom right up to the top. Challenge yourself to actually make a full song. Don't worry about there being loads of crazy production and it being something that will be ready to go on the radio if it's your first try, although I would still try and push to make it the best quality that you can. But just keep it simple, but actually finish a song. Then do it again, and the more you do it, the easier it will get, the better it will get, and the identity of yourself as a producer will develop into one that is that of a finisher, not just a starter. You are what you repeatedly do. Secondly, set constraints. You need a framework or a time span to give yourself to complete an idea within, or it's too easy to say, I'll save it for another day, and then it just won't happen. So create a deadline. Give yourself accountability by posting a release date or telling some of your close friends that you're going to release it on this day, or working with another artist and you're both trying to collaborate to finish it on that day. Think about the genre that you want to work in before you create the idea. That way you've got a constraint roughly for the BPM, the length of the song, the energy, the kind of sound you're going to use. Obviously these are all within reason. You can change and adapt things if you need a bit more time to get something finished, but just having that deadline there initially, you're much more likely to get it done. I can't remember who it was that said it, and if I do, I will put it up on the screen. But there is a principle that the time that you give for something to happen is the time that it will take to get done. And of course, if the time that you give yourself to complete a song is however much time it takes, then the chances are it will never get done. Once you've set that deadline, you then have the freedom to do all the exploring that you need or that the song needs to be an idea that you're happy with. And that's where the freedom within the order comes. So I don't personally block out every hour of every day, but I do give myself a rough weekly schedule saying I need to have an idea each week that I am taking to completion. Next, develop your intuition and gut feeling. Each song is going to happen a little bit differently, and you want to develop your artistic decision making through the repetitions that I was talking about earlier. Sometimes it will need more production, other times you're overthinking it and it needs to be simplified. Maybe the idea just isn't going to work and it's best to let it go, and that can be difficult to do but a very important thing to do, and it will save you a lot of time. Other times the idea is worth fighting for, and you shouldn't just let it go. I all too often hear people suggesting things like, oh, if an idea isn't working within 5 or 10 minutes, then it's not going to work ever. I don't personally find that to be true. Sometimes an idea does take time to nurture, or it just needed a different instrument and you just needed to give it the time. This is where the gut feeling comes in. The more of those repetitions you do, the better your instincts and intuition will get, where you just make good choices much sooner. You choose the right instruments, the right tempo, the right type of lyrics and structure and sounds, but that again comes with doing the repetitions. So develop your gut feeling. Now this next one is a big one. Just record it. I have my template set up so when I open the project, it's already primed to record. So when I press play, my microphone is already on. I'm using the Edison and I just have it set to record pretty much the whole time throughout the session. And the idea does not have to be complete in order for me to decide to record it. This way, if a little idea that's very sensitive and needs nurturing appears, you've captured it in a sense. The number of times a great melody or a great idea might pop into your head and then it disappears as quickly as it appeared and you've lost that idea, you can't come back with it. Whereas if you were recording whilst you just came up with that little melody or that little idea, you've got it and you can then develop it. When I'm coming up with lyrics particularly, I find it helpful to just record gibberish. I don't necessarily have a full selection of lyrics, they're just random words that come out and melodies. And I'll actually drag them into the project and send them through the main vocal chain. And it sounds stupid. If I showed it to anybody else, they'd be like, nah, that sounds silly. But my brain knows that there is an idea in there that's waiting to grow. And it just keeps the process moving. Doing all of the steps that I've mentioned so far helps with this point. Get out of your own way. Even right now, whilst I'm filming this video, I can feel those voices saying, oh, I wonder if you're saying that right or doing this well enough, or is this video going to be good enough? You have to learn to listen to the valuable things that that voice is giving you, but then also just learn to shut it off completely and just get on with it. One of the main things creating that voice is this idea of perfectionism, and being perfect, of course, is overrated and subjective, but if you are aiming for something that is a very high standard or perfect, I find it emerges through doing, not through thinking. Of course, it's a good idea to do some planning before you launch into an idea, and that comes with those steps that I mentioned earlier about the general constraints, the rough structure, and the genre that you're going for. But then once you've got that rough structure, the perfection will emerge from doing. I also find it really valuable, as crazy as it might sound, to allow the gods of music to collaborate with you when you're making the song. Instead of just trying to muscle every idea yourself from start to finish, I have a vision of where I would like it to go, but leave the door open for cosmic creativity to come in, or something unexpected that takes the track into a new place that I'm really excited by. Doing this allows your ideas to stay alive and to keep moving. Get out of your own way, perfection is overrated. And the final meta perspective in this video, I always think, keep moving, what next? It's very simple, but it's very effective. So grab the help sheet down below and just keep checking those. And feel free to save a copy and then add your own points to it, because these are just the ones that I find helpful for myself. So now that we've got the mindset, we can dive into the technique toolkit. The very first thing that I will for sure make a separate video on in the future is starting with a template. I can't say enough how helpful it's been having this template. The basic structure of the template is the vocals at the top, then the drums, then a few different instrument racks that of course I will add to over time, then bass, whether that's 808 or something else, just depends on the song, some guitar, then some piano and some sound effects. For the mixer, it's very much the same. I have the same order that I have from the top down to the bottom there on the mixer here, starting from the vocals all the way along to the sound effects at the bottom, and then I bus each of those groups together here: vocals, vocal effects, drums, bass, instrument effects, strings and brass for this particular one, guitar effects, and sound effects. And then a recording channel where I can just add in guitar or vocals depending on what I would like. And I record using the Edison, so I can record lots of ideas without it filling up the project everywhere, and then I can just drag those ideas in and come back to them whenever I want to, and I can easily jump between them and have a listen. So as you can see, there's lots of recordings here of all the vocals from this project. I've also got sidechains already set up with my instruments to the kick, and the kick is sidechained to all of these different sounds so that I can already test to see what the sidechain is like in that respect. And I've already got the vocals set up so that when I throw in vocals, my vocal chain is already on here. I can immediately hear roughly what the final product is going to sound like. The basic loop idea I have is here. That's the next step I would recommend, is increasing the number of sonic colors in your sonic palette. So adding more sounds that you can work with, doing similar things to the original melody idea that you've got. So I have that initial bell sound, but I also added in a slightly different one. Then just adding in other synth sounds. So notice I changed a couple different things. There's some different drums, there's a couple different melody ideas. I added in those guitars, and those type of guitars feel like you're going somewhere. By creating a slightly different variation on the original idea, that can start to give you the basic tools that you need to start building the structure of the song. The original idea, I was using some clicks. And obviously those can just be used more delicately in the intro. Whereas using the heavier snares is much more suited to a more built-up chorus. So just take the idea that you've already got and just create a couple different versions of that idea, and then you can see where that might suggest that the track should go. One of the ways that I find is helpful to do this is if you've got a preset bank of sounds that you've worked on in other sound design sessions or from other projects, you can just dive straight in and copy the MIDI and then paste it straight into another sound. I did that with the bass note. I have the 808 melody. I liked that 808 and it was doing great things, but I knew that I wouldn't want the bass to just do that all the way through the song, so I copied that MIDI and just pasted it straight in to a couple of different ideas. So I have this bass synth. Then also have this bass synth. Now, I often avoid combining bass sounds because it can get very muffled and over the top, and mixing those can be quite difficult, but just testing different ideas can give the sound a different character. So increase your sonic palette. Each of these little patterns or wave files are just little building blocks that I can just add or remove wherever I want. And it's all based off of this initial 4-bar loop. One of the things I find really helps in this instance to make an idea come to life is adding in real instruments. So in this instance, I added some guitars. Now initially I threw down some other ideas. And this falls into the category of just record it. I wanted to put something down, so I did. It doesn't necessarily matter if it doesn't end up getting used, but it can help keep it moving in that direction. And I then ended up adding in other guitar sounds. It just adds a different element to the track. Getting tactile with the song can humanize it and stop it from just feeling like a repeated loop. It feels like there's a bit more of a story for me. Once you've got your basic palette, you can then create a basic structure. Now, what I usually find myself doing is coming up with an intro, verse 1, pre-chorus, and then the chorus. I usually create this in its entirety first, and then you can copy and paste that over, and then change and edit and delete and move things around. One of the ways to create that basic structure and get the right sonic palette and ideas is using reference tracks. Find some songs that you're inspired by that are similar to the track that you're trying to make and listen to What instruments, what sounds are they using? How long is the intro? Are there 2 verses? Are there 3 verses? Is there 2 choruses, 3 choruses? It will give you the rough structure that you've got to work with and give you some inspiration and ideas of what other elements you could add in to move it away from just being a loop to a final song. When it's in this little loop format, in order to come up with lyric ideas, I'd probably duplicate that over like this, and then just open this up and just set it on loop. Then open up the Edison and just make sure that it's recording. Just click on play and it will just record everything on play as I'm singing. And then I can just keep coming up with ideas and just throw random gibberish down, no matter how good or how bad. I'm more focusing on the energy that I want to convey rather than necessarily than the lyrics, unless of course the lyrics just come immediately, which is great. I always open up the project credits tab in here and just write down the lyrics within here. I initially just throw down anything that comes to my mind. It doesn't matter whether it's well formed, whether it even makes sense to the energy of the song. I just throw ideas down based on how I'm feeling. Words that come to mind, but also words that feel nice to say based on the style of the track. You've got to let the idea unfold through the uncertainty. When ideas first come, they're very sensitive. They usually require nurturing. So if you're too overcritical when you first start, every little flame that arrives you will instantly put out by going, nah, it's not cool enough, or no, it's too similar to something else. Whereas if you just throw down any random ideas, the chances are something will just start to form itself because you're throwing ideas at it. So being too critical can kill it. I find it helpful to turn that criticism off for a brief period to allow silliness, randomness, genuine emotions to come through, and then once you've thrown some ideas down, then you can turn the criticism back on and start refining them down to ones that you actually really like. That's where the gut intuition and the just record it part comes in. Most of the time, repetition legitimizes. So when you first got that idea, because it's so fresh and new, it might not seem like it's that good, but actually when you record it and you throw it into the project and you see what it sounds like in context, then you can suddenly go, actually, yeah, that is a good idea. I really like that. And then when you put it in other places and you use the same words, it's like, oh yeah, okay, it's gone from being this little tiny idea to something that like I can sing along to, and other people could be singing the words back. That's one of the things I love about music, is when a tiny idea becomes something that other people have stuck in their head. So repetition legitimizes. Once you've got your basic loop idea and you've copied it into a basic structure and added and removed a couple of different ideas, then automation becomes really powerful. With things like the halftime on gross beat, so that in certain sections at full speed, it's really high energy. In other sections, it's at half speed, so it feels more submerged and subdued. And then I also have high pass filtering and low pass filtering, so that certain sounds will come in and come out. And this gives a sense of flow and direction. That's also where these little pads and atmospheres blend together really well. So if you listen to the instruments, there's a lot that ends up going on in these sections because of automation, cutting and adding in each of those little different sections. The other thing that can help blend those things together are sound effects, reverses, transitions, and atmospheres. Like I mentioned earlier, when increasing your palette, you can make little pads, but I also add in these sweeps and sound effects, these swells with the strings, and then other sound effects here, risers and fallers. Then once you've got that basic structure, over the other side of the project that's where you can get even more creative. So I then added in a bridge where I've removed most of the original elements and kept it much more minimal.
I give it all till I don't have anything left. Fly down and down to the end, yeah. Follow her goal, and I know that I can rewrite it all. The darkest of angels will sing you the sweetest lullaby. Darkest angel, show me the way.
That was that. I really hope that you found it valuable. If you did, you know what to do. Let me know if you managed to finish any ideas with the help of this video. I'd love to hear them. Send them across to me on the Discord or on my Instagram. I'm excited to see what you come up with. I really look forward to sharing the next video with you, and until then, believe in yourself and you will be unstoppable. Bye.
Break through the wall and let go and feel the rain. Fighting pure.